On the first Saturday night of February 2026, Donald Trump attended a private evening event at the Alfalfa Club in Washington, D.C. The Alfalfa Club is a private event attended by political elites, business leaders, and insiders in Washington. This gathering was supposed to be a cheerful evening filled with jokes and fun. However, when Trump took the stage, his words sent shockwaves through the room and across the border to Canada. Trump said, "We have no intention of invading Greenland. We accept that." Then came a joke that wasn't funny. "I never intended to make Greenland the 51st state. I want to make Canada the 51st state. Greenland will be the 52nd state. Venezuela could be the 53rd state." According to the Washington Post, which reported this news, the reaction in the room was not laughter. It was an awkward silence. Some of Trump's jokes did not elicit a response from the audience, so the room fell silent repeatedly. Attendees were not entirely sure whether Trump's words were jokes or serious policy statements. Therefore, they decided to remain silent rather than laugh, as it could become a real threat. The discomfort was palpable. Even in a room filled with Trump supporters and Republican donors, the idea of annexing Canada, Greenland, and Venezuela was too extreme. It had crossed the line of political humor and turned into an unsettling imperial ambition. But for Canadians watching from across the border, this was not the first time Trump had threatened annexation. It was simply the most explicit and organized version yet. Trump had now created a hierarchy of conquest. Canada comes first, Greenland second, Venezuela third. This was not a random outburst. This was a roadmap, and the fact that Trump delivered it at a formal Washington event in front of America's political establishment made it even more concerning. Because if Trump feels comfortable saying this publicly in front of elites, what is he saying privately to his military advisors and cabinet officials? Trump's Alfalfa Club speech was shocking, but it was not new. Trump has been threatening to make Canada the 51st state for over a year. The pattern is clear and escalating. In December 2024, Trump joked at a dinner with Justin Trudeau at Mar-a-Lago that if Canada can't handle his proposed 25% tariff, then Canada should just become the 51st state. Dominic LeBlanc, Canada's public safety minister who was at the dinner, tried to downplay it as teasing, but the threat lingered. In May 2025, Trump offered Canada protection under his proposed Golden Dome missile defense system, but only if Canada became the 51st state. "It will cost $0 if they become our cherished 51st state," Trump wrote on Truth Social. Otherwise, Canada would have to pay $61 billion to join. Canada was considering the offer, Trump claimed falsely. The Canadian Prime Minister's office immediately issued a statement. Canada is an independent, sovereign nation, and it will remain one. Trump ignored the rejection. In March 2025, amid escalating tariff debates, Trump again used annexation as a bargaining chip. "The only thing that makes sense is for Canada to become our cherished 51st state. This would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear." Mark Carney, then campaigning for Prime Minister, fired back with defiance. "The biggest risk we have to this economy is Donald Trump. He's trying to break us so he can own us. We're all going to stand up against Donald Trump. I'm ready." By September 2025, Trump was telling military leaders at Quantico that Canada had called to ask about joining the Golden Dome, and he replied that Canada should just join the United States to get it for free. The story was identical to the one he told in May. He was repeating the threat over and over, normalizing the idea of Canadian annexation through sheer repetition. And now, at the Alfalfa Club, Trump had gone further. He had ranked his annexation targets: Canada first, Greenland second, Venezuela third. This is not a joke. This is a plan. So why does Canada come first in Trump's annexation hierarchy? Why not Greenland, which Trump has also obsessed over for months? The answer lies in economics, resources, and strategic geography. Canada is the United States' largest trading partner. Over 90% of Canada's oil exports go to the United States. Canada supplies nearly 3 out of every 5 imported barrels of oil entering America. Canadian energy keeps American refineries running, American cars moving, and American homes heated. If Trump could annex Canada, he would control the largest oil reserves outside the Middle East. He would eliminate his biggest trade competitor, and he would gain access to Canada's vast freshwater resources, critical minerals, and Arctic territory. Greenland is strategically important for missile defense and Arctic dominance, but it's a small population with limited economic integration into the United States. Venezuela has oil, but it's politically unstable and geographically distant. Canada, on the other hand, is right next door. It's economically integrated. It's militarily weak compared to the United States. And most importantly, Trump sees Canada as vulnerable and ripe for exploitation. He's repeatedly said, Canada relies entirely on the United States. We don't rely on Canada. That's a lie. The United States absolutely relies on Canadian energy, Canadian water, Canadian lumber, Canadian aluminum, and Canadian trade. But Trump believes his own propaganda, and he believes that by applying enough economic and political pressure, he can break Canada's will to resist. Trump's strategy is to make life so difficult for Canada that annexation starts to look like a relief. Impose tariffs until Canadian industries collapse. Threaten military overreach until Canada's defense spending bankrupts the government. Support Alberta separatists until Canadian unity fractures. And then, when Canada is weak and divided, offer annexation as the solution to all of Canada's problems. Join America, become the 51st state, all your troubles disappear. It's a classic imperial playbook. Weaken, divide, conquer, and Trump is following it step by step. Mark Carney has been absolutely clear in his rejection of Trump's annexation fantasies. It will never happen. Those 3 words have become Carney's mantra. No matter how many times Trump threatens, no matter how much economic pressure he applies, Carney refuses to entertain the idea that Canada would ever surrender its sovereignty. And that defiance has resonated deeply with the Canadian public. Carney's approval ratings surged to 60 to 64% after his Davos speech, precisely because he stood up to Trump when others wanted to appease him. But Carney's defiance comes with risks. Trump does not handle rejection well. Every time Carney says no, every time he refuses to bow down, Trump escalates. The tariffs get higher. The threats get more explicit. The pressure gets more intense. Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has accused Carney of virtue signaling and warned of consequences in CASMA renegotiations. Trump's trade officials have described Alberta as a natural partner for the United States, implicitly encouraging separatism. And Trump himself has suggested that if Canada won't join willingly, economic force will be used to make it happen. So Carney is walking a tightrope. He needs to defend Canadian sovereignty without provoking Trump into actions that would devastate the Canadian economy. He needs to build alliances with Europe, China, and other trading partners to reduce dependence on the United States, but without giving Trump ammunition to accuse Canada of betrayal. He needs to strengthen Canada's military to defend against both external threats and American encroachment, but without bankrupting the federal budget. And he needs to keep Canada united, preventing Alberta separatists from fragmenting the country and making Trump's job easier. It's an impossible task, but Carney is doing it anyway because the alternative is surrender. And surrender means the end of Canada as a sovereign nation. Trump made that clear at the Alfalfa Club. Canada is target number 1. And Trump will not stop until Canada either submits or finds a way to fight back so effectively that annexation becomes politically and economically impossible. Trump's Alfalfa Club speech revealed something far bigger than just his obsession with Canada. It revealed a new vision of American imperialism that extends across the Western Hemisphere. Canada, Greenland, Venezuela, 51st, 52nd, 53rd states. This is not about trade deals or border security anymore. This is about territorial expansion. This is about building an American empire through coercion, economic warfare, and the threat of military force. And it should terrify not just Canadians, but every country that depends on a rules-based international order. If Trump can annex Canada without consequence, what stops him from going after Mexico? What stops him from intimidating smaller countries in Central and South America into submission? What stops China from doing the same thing to Taiwan, using Trump's annexation of Canada as justification? The entire post-World War II framework of national sovereignty and territorial integrity collapses if major powers can simply threaten their neighbors into joining them. Trump is not just attacking Canada, he's attacking the foundational principle that countries have the right to exist independently, free from foreign domination. The fact that Trump's audience at the Alfalfa Club responded with awkward silence rather than laughter is telling. Even Trump's supporters recognize that he's gone too far. Even Republican elites understand that openly planning to annex 3 sovereign nations crosses a line from controversial policy into dangerous authoritarianism. But Trump doesn't care about norms. He doesn't care about international law. And he doesn't care if his plans make America look like an imperial aggressor rather than a defender of democracy. For Canada, the message is clear. Trump is serious. He wants Canada as the 51st state. He has a plan. And he will use every tool at his disposal, economic, political, and military, to make it happen. The only question is whether Canada has the strength, unity, and resolve to resist. Mark Carney says it will never happen. But preventing it will require every ounce of Canadian determination, creativity, and courage, because Trump is not joking, and the room that went silent knows it.